I'll do my best to project my voice as best that I can. First of all, terrific job. Congratulations, Gary. I mean, what a great event. I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be than at an event with our owners. This is probably my 6th or 7th event I've been to, and there's nothing that energizes me more than being around smart owners. I've been in the car business my whole life. I grew up in Detroit. I've been around cars forever, and I have never experienced what I experienced when I'm around the best owners in the world, owners of the Smart 4.2. And I've been around this car. I was telling Ken Wager, who I knew before we even launched the car. Ken was calling me. He was an enthusiast, and I think from the day we started up Smart USA, we were hearing from Ken, and you know, I work for a guy named Roger Penske, and he's our chairman, and he made his living by really trying to understand his customers and listening to them. And one of the reasons I really enjoy working with him is that him and I are so philosophically aligned in that way. And I'll tell you what, you take time out and you spend time with anybody. It's not other corporate executives, it's with your owners. And that's where you really can find out what's going on with your cars. Believe me, everything I hear I try to take back and try to understand it and see if we can try to get it incorporated into the product. We can't do everything. It's a relatively simple car with limited application. But I'm happy to announce today that in 2010 we'll have an optional armrest. And in 2011, you know, I think we have cruise. You know, part of the reason, you know, certainly for all of us, it's a little frustrating that we don't have a lot of these things right at the start when you launch the car, and some of the accessories that we would all enjoy, wheels and body cladding and some other different suspension parts and things like that. But this car is so sensitive to anything that's added onto it, both from an electrical perspective and from a balance perspective as it relates to safety, that it's very difficult. Everything that's put on has to be engineered, tested, mainly crash tested. For many of you know that the wheels actually are part of the safety management system of the car. That in the event of a side crash, they serve as a bumper effect, and you can see that they're offset from the body of the car. So the wheels have to crash the right way for us to maintain the integrity that the car gets in safety ratings. Even chroming wheels presents some different levels of how the wheel will react in the event of an accident. So I'm learning all this as I go as well. When we go over there very frustrated and say, why can't we get a wheel? Different this and different that. And the engineers very calmly will take you through some of the reasons why. And I'll answer questions later and try to get into some of the many questions you have or suggestions that you might have as well. But it's been really an exciting launch. And I mentioned I had been around this car almost from the beginning. I was with Mercedes for quite a bit of my career. And in the 90s, mid-90s, we had to make a decision whether the Gen 1 Smart, the 450 as it's referred to, would be engineered and designed to meet U.S. specifications. You know, and at that time, bigger was better, and we were all into our luxury cars, and it really wasn't the right time, probably, for Smart in the United States, and we passed. Well, I think after the launch, a lot of us had second thoughts, and as 2000 rolled around, they started to think about the next generation. That's how long in advance you start to plan. They're planning right now for the successor to this particular car. And we said absolutely, you know, we want the 451 to be engineered from the ground up to meet all U.S. specifications, not just for safety and for emissions, but also for customer convenience. And that was done. So the journey has been a very long journey. And many of you, for the first time, probably saw Smart when you were vacationing in Europe. or you might have saw it on TV and said, what is that? You know, and you do some research and you find it, and you know, you can't help falling in love with this car. Every day I get things in the mail that are just so enamoring to the point where you really feel like the car's part of your family. And what we learned that was very interesting when we first started the road show, and the first road show was in Laguna Niguel, California. It was on May 17th, 2007, and we had been working on this concept actually for years. I mean, that was how we were going to launch the car. We had one time called it the Smart Invasion. We were going to different cities and invade the city with smart. Probably like everybody was looking at the cars here, they thought there was probably an alien invasion somewhere. I hadn't seen a car like that. Here, by the way, this is beautiful. I mean, what a drive. I just wish I wasn't in a rented Camry. Believe me, that was no choice of mine. I was telling Ken at dinner, I feel awkward not driving a Smart. When I get into another car, I don't feel safe. I don't feel confident anymore. It's just a completely different experience. And I would have loved to have driven this road with a Smart.
Yeah.
I sure wouldn't have. I sure wouldn't have needed this. I wouldn't have needed to stop and buy these. Which I did about halfway up, man. I had the windows rolled down. I was lightheaded. And you're Smart. You're just so much more confident. So we're at the first road show, May 17, 2007. We did the road show because we didn't have dealers on it. So there was the only way we could really introduce this car is to go city by city and have people see, feel, touch, drive the car. Well, we invited people who had made reservations. We started the reservation program in March of 2007, and we invited people who signed up as insiders. Well, in that area of the country, there were probably maybe 150 in that category for that particular area. We were going to start the ride and drive at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We got there at what we call Penske time. We were there about 7 o'clock in the morning, make sure everything was just right. And by 10 o'clock, there had to be 400 people in there. And it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. We go over to Lowe's. We said, we can't have people wait in line. It's going to start to get hot here. We bought pagers. We put together a numbering system within a half hour. We went to everybody in line and said, hey, you don't need to stand in the line. Go in the dealership. We have a trailer. We have some other things. You can see, here's a pager or number, whatever you would like. We'll make sure to call you when it's your turn. Not one person got out of line. The only thing I could compare it to is when my kids were real little and we took them to Disneyland. And the hottest ride at the time, my kids were little, was Space Mountain. And that line was around, you wouldn't get out of, I don't care what anybody offered you, you wouldn't get out of that line. That's the only thing I can compare this experience. And whether it was the first event in Laguna Niguel or the last event in Mockingbird Lane in Dallas, Texas, it was the same experience that we had. But what was even more interesting than that is that when you saw people in line, you couldn't tell whether they were a CEO of a company or a midday commuter. And what was also interesting, and I see it here, there's nobody bragging about what they do for a living. There's nobody talking about how much more they have or what they have or where they live or what. Everybody's sharing the enthusiasm for this great little car. And it's a very interesting phenomenon that you can see. It really bonds people in a very special way. And this is something that is more movement-oriented than it really is car-oriented. There's something else here that's going on. And we're going to try to bring whatever that is more to the general public. And I'm working on a couple of things that will involve you and will involve telling this story. That it's kind of being part of something bigger. I can't put our finger on exactly what it is, but we know it's very special. You know it's very special. You know, to have people gather here is something very special. I was fortunate enough to go to the movie premiere of Pink Panther 2 at the Ziegfeld Theater in New York. And as is tradition at the movie premieres, the stars of the movie will go down the red carpet and the